Begin the current Daf Mesech Yoma Daf Memvav. Begin on the second line down at the top of the Amud, where we continue the discussion regarding the topic of our previous mission regarding the marachas that were on the Mizbeach. Sure, it's corresponds to Chazak and Cheskel to end of Daf Acham, B'Shem joining us today's Daf, discussed with Tinnik Ben Yehudis. Some of these discussed in today's Daf, like we mentioned, are we had a machlekes regarding how many marachas there were every single day, and then that extra one that they had on Kippurim. Some say 2, some say 3, some say 4, and we're going to discuss that fourth one regarding the Evam and Pedam Shlo Nesachim and Be'er that weren't consumed the previous day, that you had a special maracha to put the previous day's limbs on that maracha. And the daf ends with a discussion regarding is it allowed to extinguish coals that were removed from the Mizbeach. We know that you don't extinguish coals like Tichbet. What's halacha if you already took those coals off the Mizbeach, would it still have that same issue? So the key terms of concept in today's daf are Tumah Dechuya B'tzibur, that Tumah, although you're allowed to do things in a state of Tumah in the Beis HaMikdash in certain situations, but it's simply that we override it, but it's still a problem. Or Tumah Hutra B'tzibur is that no, it's totally permitted, we're not even concerned for it at all. So we begin the current daf. Amr Rabbi Lazar B'Kim Bar Kapara, that Omer Meir, we had quoted 3 different Tanoic opinions. And Reb Meir's opinion, who held that there was 4 marachas every single day, which was the most amount we mentioned, so if you have the limbs of a carbon oil that were left over in the previous day, what you do is you make a separate marach, you make a special fire for it on the Mizbeach, the surgeon, and you organize the limbs on that. And even on Shabbos, you're going to have that fire and you're going to put the Ivarim on it. Now, the Gemara says, Mike Mashlon, this is Rabbi Lazar in the name of Bar Kapara. What's he telling us? When he's telling us that according to May, you're going to make a maracha during the weekday, he ends up saying B'Fil B'Shabbos, but first he says the primary halacha on the weekday. What do you mean, Tanin? It's our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said, B'chol Yom Hoyishamar B'Marachas, every single day according to May there was 4 marachas, and one of them was for the leftover limbs. So what are you saying that we don't know from the Mishnah already? From Rabbi Avin, he says, no, Lenitzucha was only necessary to say Elul Psur. The Chiddush that Bar Kapar was saying was that there are certain karbanas that are apostle, but what's called im'olul yerdi. If you put on Mizbeach, initially we tell you don't put it on because it's apostle, but if you put it on, then don't take it down. So same thing is regarding this 4th maracha, that we're going to put on to that maracha, even something that's apostle, because we're going to say once it's up there, we're not taking it down anymore. Now, however, the Gemara qualifies this teaching. It says, this is specifically if the fires had already taken a hold of that limb, where from that moment it becomes quote-unquote lach mishal mizbeach. It becomes the bread of mizbeach. It's okay. Although it's possible, okay, it's already the mizbeach's bread, we're not taking it off anymore. And then you'll put it onto that 4th maracha. But if the fires had not yet taken a hold of it, then no, then it's not going to have its own separate maracha. It's not significant enough to be on this 4th maracha because it's apostle carbon. That's one version. Ikidam, those say a different version that actually echad kesherin v'echad psul. This halacha that we're saying that you're going to go ahead and you're going to put it on the 4th maracha, separate fire, especially for the yesterday's limbs, are not only regarding the pasla karbanis only if mashal ben or. No. Even the kosher limbs and the pasla ones. Mashal ben or, if the fires had already taken a hold of it, then yes, you're going to put it on to the 4th maracha. But if not, then no, it's not significant enough because it's not lach mishal mizbeach. You're not going to go ahead and make a separate maracha for those limbs. That's the chiddush in the first part of this halacha. You're right, we knew that from the Mishnah already that you have a 4th maracha. The chiddush was regarding pasla karbanis, and there was 2 versions regarding if you're going to put it mashal ben or specifically on the pasla, even by the kasher. Now the seif of the Mishnah said V'Fil B'Shabbos, that even on Shabbos, if you had these limbs that were not totally consumed from the day before, you're going to go ahead and put on this 4th maracha on Shabbos. So the Gemara says that also, Tanina, we learned that in the Mishnah. What's the chiddush? Because the Mishnah told us, V'hayoim, and today, meaning why we bring this in our Masech? Because we were saying every single day there was 4 marachas. Today, Yom Kippurim, there was chamish. There was 5 marachas. Now, Yom Kippurim, regarding malacha, it has the same malacha like Shabbos, basically. And the Mishnah told us that the limbs of the carbon tamid of Erev Yom Kippurim, you would make on the maracha, one of the 5 on Yom Kippurim. How do you get 5 marachas in Yom Kippurim? You get the maracha gedayla, you get maracha shnisha getaris, you get the one lakima eish, and you get the one of the varma pedarm, and you get the special one that you take for the getaris lefnai v'lefnim. So wait a second. I already know that on Shabbos you make the maracha. Because in Yom Kippur you're having 5 marachas. That means to say, what is this fire for? Obviously it's for the Eivar B'Darim of what? Of yesterday. So I already know that I bring yesterday's limbs even on Shabbos, because Shabbos and Yom Kippur has the same halacha. So you're not teaching me any chiddush by saying for the Shabbos. I already know that from the Mishnah. So Rabbi Yaakov, he says no itzrach is necessary. Why? You would have thought to say, Adamili, when did you say this? That you can have all 5 marachas on Yom Kippurim? Is heichen dechal Yom Kippurim yisachar haShabbos. If Yom Kippur falls out after Shabbos on Sunday, the chelvi Shabbos kriyim Yom Kippurim, the fats of Shabbos are sacrificed on Yom Kippurim. Because Oile Shabbos b'Shabbato, meaning you could bring it, Shabbos is Mohammed Yom Kippurim, you could bring its limbs on Yom Kippurim. Avol be'emtze Shabbos loy, but let's say Yom Kippurim falls out and during the week on a Tuesday, then I would say that actually you wouldn't have 5 marachas, you'd only have 4, because you wouldn't bring the leftover limbs from yesterday, from Monday, on Yom Kippurim on Tuesday, because you don't bring on the maracha to be doicha, to do malachas for a carbon that was from yesterday. That's not a Yom Tiv, Yom Kippurim, a Shabbos type of a carbon. Kamash Malan, that's you needed Bar Kapar to tell you that no, even on Shabbos, but you would not have known it from the Mishnah, because I would have said that this that you bring on Yom Kippurim 5 marachas is only when it falls out on Sunday, and then you could bring Shabbos is where there's a whole discussion in Tosfos. You show them exactly regarding how we resolve this with Gemaras elsewhere.
What about from Friday to Shabbos?
What about it?
It's also if a woman that falls out from any other korban, what do you do with the leftover woman that doesn't burn?
Right, you'll burn it before.
But let's say you realize that Friday night.
Right, so maybe you don't. That's the Gemara discusses in many places, that maybe you don't. And then you just yatzil the base of straight, whatever, let it be possible in there. But I'm saying, but here you would say that maybe that you're right. You wouldn't have 5 marachas every Yom Kippurim. Only if it falls out after Shabbos. That's the chiddush. That's every Shabbos. Now, Amar Rava, but Rava says, Man ha'deloichayish lekimche. Who's not concerned for his flour, meaning how he's grinding? Ha'b'chol yoim. But what do you mean? We said that every single day there was 4 marachas. We learned in the Mishnah. When you say every single day, that sounds like even on Shabbos. You're right, the Yom Kippurim part about having 5, maybe you could say that was when it fell on the Sunday. But if you're saying B'chol Yom, it was 4, B'chol Yom is every day, not just Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It's every day, including Shabbos. So obviously in Shabbos you had 4. How do you have 4? Must mean that you have the one from the Eivar B'Darim Shloim Nisachim of the Arab, that even on Shabbos you have from yesterday's, from Fridays. It's a kasha, definitely difficult according to Bar Kapara. What is he teaching us when he says that Philip Shabbos? We know that Rameh holds even though Shabbos, because that's inherent in the wording of the halacha of the Mishnah, that every single day he had 4, which includes that the maracha of the Eivar B'Darim that would not consume the previous day. But says the Gemara, Upligid Rav Huna. Rav Huna disagrees with this halacha Bar Kapara and our Rava, that they said that when it says in the Mishnah B'chol Yoim, meaning Rav was asking, you don't even need Bar Kapara because it's already in the Mishnah. Every single day, which means to say yes, specifically even on Shabbos. Rav Huna disagrees. He says no, that this that you bring the limbs from the previous day is every day beside Shabbos. It doesn't mean every single day literally. Why? Because the Amar, he says the following halacha. He says Tchilasai, the beginning, meaning the beginning of the carbon tamid that's brought on Shabbos, that's daicha. That overrides, that's slaughtered and sacrificed on Shabbos. But Saifai, but the end of the carbon tamid, meaning the tamid from Erev Shabbos, that's Eina Deicha, that doesn't override. Those limbs are not sacrificed once it comes Friday night. Rather had to have been from before Shabbos. In other words, he disagrees with this halacha of Rava and Bar Kapara. They were saying that it's on Shabbos that you will sacrifice it. And Rava said it's so obvious that even you see in the wording of the Mishnah, Bar Kapara, that Rav Huna actually disagrees. He says it's not true. This that you could bring a carbon on Shabbos, you're doing malachas. It's only the ikr carbon, the beginning of it, but the leftover, the limbs, that you can't do on Shabbos. Now the Gemara discusses his opinion actually. What we just said is only one version of Rav Huna. Gufa, the Gemara quotes his teaching, Rav Huna. It says, Tamid, the carbon, Tamid, the daily sacrifice. The beginning of it, meaning the primary carbon, the shchita and the zrika and all that, that's Deicha Shabbos. That you bring every single day, including Shabbos. Seifa in Deicha, the end of it, meaning after you did the whole avodas, now you got the limbs that you got to burn on the Mizbech, that's not Deicha Shabbos. It says the Gemara, mind the Deicha. So actually, it doesn't say Shabbos. He just says, The beginning is deicha, the end's not deicha. So my end of deicha, it's actually machlekes. He says, deicha says Shabbos. In other words, according to this version of Chisda, Rav Huna actually does not disagree with Rav and Bar Kapara. He agrees that it's deicha Shabbos, even the hektarim of the Ivarm Padarm, so you'll have that maracha on Shabbos. But ve'ena deicha es hatumah. In other words, when we say that a carbon is deicha tumah is only for the spraying of the blood, but the burning of the fats and the sacrificial parts, that is what we're saying that will not be deicha tumah. But for Rabba as the Girsa, he says, no, deicha is a tumah, ve'ena deicha es Shabbos, it's the opposite, like we had quoted Rav Huna previously. No, it is deicha tumah, even the end of the burning of the limbs. But what we're saying, the seifa is not deicha, is not deicha Shabbos. So Amalei Abai l'Rabba, Abai says to Rabbi, says l'didach kasha or l'Rav Chizda kasha. According to both you, it's difficult. Why? Because l'didach kasha, according to you, it's difficult. Maishno tumah. Why is tumah different? That you said that even at the end, meaning regarding the burning of the limbs, you're saying that's going to be deicha tumah. Because the chsev, obviously you're basing it on the pasuk about midbar. The pasuk says regarding the korban tamid, it says command the Jewish people and tell them as korban ilach liishai, my bread, my korban, Hashem says for my fires, it's a pleasant aroma. I want you to safeguard it, to sacrifice it to me b'may adoi in this designated time. But my adoi sounds like whenever it's supposed to be, which is a daily korban, which is afilu tumah, even if it's state of tumah. So if that's the case, then Shabbos nami, Shabbos also, which throughout Shabbos we always put those two together, but me'adim v'fil b'Shabbos should be on a designated time, even if it's a Shabbos. So it should be deicha Shabbos too, b'seifa, just like you said regarding tumah. And Rav Chizda could say the same question in the reverse. Ma'ishna Shabbos, why Shabbos different? That it's going to be deicha, even the end of the burning lets you make this special fourth maracha. K'tachsev b'meyad says in the designated time, which tells after Shabbos even on Shabbos, you got to do it every day. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Shabbos. So then tumah nabi. But they should tell you, even in the state of tumah. Why are you differentiating both you and Rav Chizda? Why are you differentiating? Either way, it should be both. So Malaysi said that by he says lo did kasha. No, for me it's not difficult. Rav Chizda kasha, and not for me is it difficult. Why? So he says like this. I'll explain to you why. The did kasha according to me is not difficult because seifa kitchilasa. We're comparing the end of the carbon, which again is the burning of the limbs, to the beginning, which is the shchit and the zrik and all that, as we continue in Tumah days. Tumah, regarding the tumah of a carbon, the carbon tzibur of a tamid, the beginning of the carbon, bar mitcha tumahu, it's, if you don't find a kind that's tart to spray the blood, it's definitely eligible to override tumah. So seven amadachi. So the end of the carbon is the same thing, that it's also eligible to override tumah. Whereas Shabbos, the tchilasai, the beginning of this carbon tamid, which one? From Erev Shabbos, Lama Mitcha Shabbosu, the beginning of that carbon wasn't eligible to be Deicha Shabbos because you slaughtered Bein Arabayim on Friday, and actually the blood becomes possible by Shkia, by sundown. So this carbon was not fit Tchilasai to be Deicha Shabbos, it's a Friday carbon, not a Shabbos carbon. So the end of it, of the burning, is also not fit to Deicha Shabbos. So he said that explains the reason, from my opinion, why I hold that Tumah is going to be Deicha, because the beginning was Deicha, it could be Deicha Tumah. So the same for also, Shabbos the beginning was not, so the end also not. But Rav Chizda is also not difficult, because he has a different logic. So it doesn't hold that this comparison of the end of the carbon to the beginning of the carbon. So, but then why does he hold Shabbos yes and Tumah not? So he says, I'll tell you why. Shabbos, regarding Shabbos, which is totally permitted in the tzibur, meaning it's not tchuya, can't be every Shabbos tchuya. Shabbos, you're allowed to go ahead and do the carbon tzibur that you're supposed to bring. We bring the masafin, we bring the tamidin. So the end of it, which is the Friday carbon, the end of it on Shabbos, is also hutra b'tzibur. It's also permitted to be done. Whereas Tumah, but regarding Tumah, the tchuyi b'tzibur, the halacha of overriding Tumah was with great difficulty. As much as possible, we try to find tahar kahanim. It's only overridden, not totally permitted. So tchilah, so the beginning of the carbon, which is the shchit and the zrik, the primary atonement, so that's going to be deicha tumah. But seif at the end, which is just to burn the limbs, the lavik kapar, which is not the primary atonement of a carbon. If you lube the drum, you still got your atonement. You could even eat the meat. So like dachi, so therefore that's not going to override. And therefore, that's the two different explanations of Rabbah and Rav Chizda for explaining why one would hold Tumah yes and Shabbos not, another one would hold Shabbos yes and Tumah not. It's based on different logic, but it's not difficult. We're not learning out from the Me'adah like you asked. Now, the Gemara continues, and Rabbeinu Hananel says that we had explained on the previous daf that a pasuk of Eish Tamid Tukar HaMizbech L'Sichbeh, the constant fire that's burning on the Mizbeach should not be extinguished, we learned out from that pasuk the fires of the pan that the Kohen Gadol brought in Yom Kippurim, and the menorah, because it said the word tamid, which lahalas neir tamid, we learned that was also taken from the Mizbeach HaChitzon. So that pasuk, which we learned out the fires of the Mizbeach HaMachta, are alluded to in the pasuk of the fire should be burning and should not be extinguished. So hence the Gemara has the following question: Itmar, as we learned, Hamachabe ish machta u'menorah. What happens? What's the halacha if, like again, the pasuk is telling us that generally there's allowed to extinguish the coals which are burning on the mizbeach. Ish tugam mizbeach leisichta. The question is, if after you shoveled out the coals for the pan that you're going to bring into the Kodesh HaKodeshim, or to take for the fire for the menorah, after you shoveled it out, then you extinguished it. What's the halacha? Is that violating the law of extinguishing the fires on the mizbeach? So it's machlekes Abaye Machayev, Rav Pater. So the Gemara it qualifies first the machlekes. The Chavi Bereshit Mizbeach, if you, as you're taking it out, you extinguish it on the top Mizbeach, so the Kulam will play the Chayev. No one's going to disagree that you can be liable because you violated on the Mizbeach. You extinguish the coals, the fires on the Mizbeach. Ki pligi, the dispute is the Achte A'ara V'Chavi. You had taken out the fire from the Mizbeach and you put on the ground and then you extinguished it. That's the machlekes. Abaye Machavi says you can be chayiv because Ish Mizbechu. Ultimately, it's the fire in the Mizbeach and you extinguished it. So they're going to be chayiv. Rav Amapata says it's going to be pata because keeping the nitka. No, once you already had removed it from the Mizbeach, so you removed it. So it's not the Ish Mizbeach anymore. So there's no problem but leisichba of extinguishing it. But the Gemara says, so wait a second. That he says, if someone takes a coal off of the Mizbeach, the kiba and the extinguished chayiv is going to be chayiv. So come on, so who's he like? You tell me he has to be kabbai like Abaye? Because it's only Abaye that says that once you took it down and you put it on the floor, it's still considered as the Eish HaMizbeach. So are you telling me that he's not like Rava? Because according to Rava, you see that you're pater because kibbin and nitka. So the Gemara says, no, I felt Timik Rava, you could say that halacha of Rav Nachman and Rabbi Abuah, who says you can be chayiv, is even like Rava, who said that when you took it down for the machta, you can be pater. Why? Because Hasam over there by Rabbi Abuah, like intik mitzvasa, when you took the coal over the mizbeach, you weren't removing it for the purposes of a different mitzvah. So you didn't remove it yet from the category of the Eish HaMizbeach. It's still the Eish HaMizbeach. You just removed it from its place. But it's still supposed to be on the Mizbeach. So yes, you'll still be liable, even according to Rava, for extinguishing it, even the coal, even on the ground. But Hacha by Rava, intaka l'mitzvasa, you removed it for a mitzvah of putting it into the pan. So you're not calling it anymore Eish HaMizbeach, it's the Eish HaMachta. You're using it for the Kodesh HaKadosh and for the Ketairis. So therefore you can be pater. But it's not a contradiction to Rabbi Baravu's halacha that you weren't removing it for anything. So it's still the fire of Mizbeach. You just took it off from where it's supposed to be, and then you'd still be chayav for extinguishing. That's one version of the machlekes Abaye and Rava. Ikitam, those say a different version. Actually, the achte ha'ara v'kabi, if you took it down, you put it on the ground. You took it off the Mizbeach, you put it on the ground, v'chabi, and you extinguish it. The kulam will apply the pot. No one's going to disagree that you can be pot because it's not Eish HaMizbeach. It's not on the fire of the Mizbeach. It's down on the ground. So you're not chayav for extinguishing it. Kipligi, the chavi b'reish Mizbeach, the machlekes would be if you extinguish it on the top of the Mizbeach after you already moved it off the fire. Because on the fire, for sure, it's Eish HaMizbeach. But you took it off, but it's still on top of the Mizbeach. Abaye Machayev, he says, it's the fire on the Mizbeach. It might not be on the Maracha, but you can be chayev. Rav Pata is going to be Pata, no, keeping the nitka. Once you already moved from its place, it's not the Eish on the Mizbeach, it's something else. It happens to be on the Mizbeach, but it's not the Eish on the Mizbeach, because you already removed it for something else. But then the Gemara says, again, according to this version, the Gemara quotes his teaching and says, if you take the coal off from the Mizbeach and you extinguish it, you're going to be chayev. Come on, who's that like? According to this version, you told me that both of them hold that you can be pater when you put it on the ground and extinguish it. So now, according to this version, he's not like either one of them. So the Gemara, no, could be like both. Hasam over there by Rav Nachman, of Rabbi Baravuah, loy intik l'mitzvahs, like we said. It wasn't taken off for any other mitzvah purpose. So yeah, even Abaye Rav would agree that even if you put it on the ground of the Azara, it's still going to be considered Eish HaMizbeach. You're just in the wrong place because you took it off. But of course, it took Michai. By Abaye and Rava is intik l'mitzvahs. You removed it from the Mizbeach for the mitzvah purpose. So yeah, it's possible that even on the top of the Mizbeach, according to Rava, it's intik l'mitzvahs, so it'd be intik. And you might even be pater on top of the Mizbeach, but he would still hold you chayiv even if it's on the ground, if it wasn't intik for any mitzvah purpose, because it's still the Eish HaMizbeach. You just removed it from its place. Hanlach, we shall return to your Teref B'Kalfi, the fourth parak in the Masechtas Yoma, Teres Bakalfi, which meant taking out from the box, which spoke about the goyrel of the two different seirim, the slaughtering of the confession that he does the second time on his par, and the slaughtering of that par, and the coals and the keteras getting ready for what's going to be mitzvah in the next parak, which is parak Haitzilai, which is then actually going ahead and doing the avodah of the keteras. Thank you, anytime.